Let's do the damn thing.
Oh, you know what time it is. It's time to take it to the Birdland. It's about to go down. Hope y'all ready. Yeah, let's go. Come and roll with me to the Birdland. Friends got to giving you the word, man. Any other BS is absurd, man. Sports talking, they give it to you firsthand. They can talk Terps, they can talk O's. Yeah, they both lit. That's how it goes. Baltimore squad, Ravens and Poe. Better tune in, here gonna show. Birdland, Birdland, Birdland. BS. Birdland, Birdland, Birdland. BS.
It's all about that BS, baby.
What's up, BSers?
What's up, peeps?
Fred, Scott, James, and Drew not in the house tonight. Ryan not in the house tonight.
Yeah.
Just the three of us tonight. Well, wait a minute. This is a special show, man.
It's a special show. What are you talking about, man?
Special night.
Great show prepared for you as we get ready for the NFL draft. Doing something a little different tonight. An all-Ravens show.
Yeah, buddy. I've been asking for this for a long fucking time.
Yeah, you
have. All-Ravens show.
Yeah, you have.
Let's do it.
So we got a special guest joining us tonight. You might know him as Michael Telford. Maybe you know him as Chibs. Maybe it's the artist formerly known as Late Round Corner.
Or asshole, because it's appropriate too. You know, whatever. Might know him as
He'll admit it. It's good. It's all good. But yeah, it's good show with him tonight. We're going to dive into a lot of Ravens stuff with him and really dive into this draft with the Ravens.
With the 14th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Baltimore Ravens select. We're going to talk all things Ravens drafts. We count down the hours, fellas. We are not long away.
No.
Less than 2 days away.
Less than 48 hours.
We're actually about almost 48 hours from the start of the
48
draft.
48 and a half hours.
Yeah, man. Excited.
Yeah, and the Ravens, look, do they stay pat at 14 here? Well, we're going to get into that because they could move back, as we've seen them do so many times over the years. Or maybe the rumors floating around today are true, and they float up in this draft. We're going to get into that.
I don't know. We're talking about it. I've heard it before. We'll see. Don't get me all excited. But before we do that, man, we got to talk to you about some lawyers, right? Remember the team over at MD Crash? Well, they've been telling you about them for the last couple of years. Well, they've expanded. More lawyers handling a much broader spectrum of cases now. Still handling all your auto accident injuries at work, of course. But now the team at Bowers, Hassan, and Herndon can help you with family laws from divorce to custody to even child support. Save this number, update this number in your phone now if you haven't done it already. 667-220-6500. Call or text them anytime for your needs. Update that number one more time, 667-220-6500. Get the team at Bowers, Hassan, and Herndon on the case for you. I'm excited, man. I'm not wasting any time. Joining us now as almost, I guess, tradition at this point leading up to the NFL draft. Like you said, the artist formerly known as Late Round Corner, now found at LR Chibs on Twitter. We're going to have to figure out what the fuck happened there with that. We call him Chibs, Mr. Michael Telford. Welcome to the show. What's up, brother?
Boys. Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, man. This is like you said. It's almost been a better tradition at this point, right?
Yeah, it's been like 3 years in a row at this point.
Yeah.
It has, man.
I think it all started with that fucking Hakeem Butler shit.
Oh God, that was not me. That was our boy. The I can't think of his name right now from YouTube. That was high on that guy.
Oh yeah.
Jesus, thank God we didn't go down that path.
Terrible decision.
Well, man, draft now 2 days away. 2 days away. What's draft like for you, man? Is it anything like us? Because for us, it's anxiety ridden, filled to the brim on pizza and beer. What's draft night look for you? Is it kind of like a holiday, like most people see it as fans?
So, I think like most people know that I probably love the draft season more than I love like the actual regular season of football.
Right.
So one thing that I do, I don't necessarily take the day off, and being a business owner now, it's a little difficult to take the day off. But I definitely make sure that I am out of work in plenty of time to get prepared for it and line up the bad puns that I have for the players' names. And just, I'm like a kid on Christmas when it's draft day. I don't care if it's day 1, 2. day 3, I slack a little bit, but days 1 and 2, I'm definitely all in.
Glued to the TV, man. You and me both.
Do you have a drink of choice during draft night or a food of choice? For us, it was pizza and beer last year, and Ryan had heartburn out.
Oh my God, worst night of Ryan's life.
It was horrible for him. But what's your go-to?
I mean, it's the same answer as anything else, man. If I'm going to have a drink, it's going to be bourbon.
Yeah.
But I haven't been drinking a lot lately. I don't think I've had a drink. I mean, I had a beer a few weeks ago when I was grilling. But other than that, that's the first drink I've had in, man.
Good for you.
Year.
Nice.
Good for you, man. Good for you. I'm sure you're feeling better.
Busy life makes it too busy, right? Ah, man.
I mean,
better. I'm a flooring contractor. I never feel good.
I understand that pain. I do, for sure. Now, you've been around on Ravens Flock Twitter as long as I have, I guess, at this point. To me, it's almost humorous to watch everyone do their predictions and mocks as this thing kind of counts down for the last couple of months. Everybody at this point.
Where they mock everybody?
That's what I'm saying. Seemingly, they do enough mocks to cover all their bases. That way, they can point out that one mock that says, I was right. I knew who it was. How do you feel about mock draft season? I mean, are you a big mocker out there? Do you do it a lot on social media?
So I used to do it a lot more than I do now. Now I have certain points during the pre-draft process where I'll release a mock, or if someone is asking for mocks to grade them, I'll throw one out there just to see what the general feeling is of the fan base or something like that. I did one today that was it was damn near perfect.
Oh yeah,
in my opinion.
I did see that. I wasn't going to call you on it, but I did see that.
Oh, dude, it started off with Jermaine Johnson at 14 and then Roger McCreary at 45, and then the board just fell perfectly after that.
That sounds pretty good.
Yeah. I think I got James Cook at 100 and I don't know, Kingsley somewhere in there, and Daniel.
The question is did you have trades turned on?
No, I'm not paying the Draft Network tax.
My man.
So, all right. So, obviously, EDC, right, is beloved by Ravens Flock for the most part. But you have another side of the fan base that thinks, he gets too much love or isn't held to the same standard as GMs because he's riding Ozzy's coattails. And this is all coming off of Ozzy, especially with Ozzy still being around. But he's been in the organization for a long time now. How do you sit back and are you assessing his drafting so far this year and, moving forward as the primary GM for the Ravens organization?
So there's a few things I want to say on this matter. One of them is the people that trash EDC all the time, these are the same people that became Ravens fans when Lamar Jackson was drafted.
Yep.
They're not actually Ravens fans, or they're 12 fucking years old and they have no idea what they're talking about. The majority of these people are either trolls or complete imbeciles. And I don't care if they hear this and they take offense to it. They're the trash part of the fan base. Now, I'm not going to say that EDC has been perfect. He's obviously had some misses.
Yeah.
But the other side of that is that he's been the GM, 3 years? You can't judge a draft class until 3 years have passed. Not really. I mean, you can give your initial impressions of it and everything like that, but you don't know what the draft class is. You don't know what the players are for a few years.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you want to judge his first draft class, sure. His second one, you can start to judge it. His third one, you can't judge yet.
Right.
Now, I get that people are upset that Jalen Ferguson has not he's not advanced as quickly as his nickname Sack Daddy, stupid fucking name anyway, made them think that he was going to improve. I'm sorry that people are mad that Orlando Brown is with the Chiefs. I'm sorry for this. I'm sorry for that. But the other side of it is, like I said, these people are just, somebody started the EDC sucks thing, and then all of these little fan accounts that think they're big names, that pander and say shit for clicks and likes, they're the ones that are pushing that narrative.
100%.
All the clickbaiters.
Right. There's nobody that takes football seriously that is pushing that narrative. Now, does he have big shoes to fill? Absolutely.
Yep.
Ozzy was Hall of Fame GM.
Yep.
And his last draft was something of a masterclass.
Yep.
So yes, he has big shoes to fill, but the draft, there's a lot of luck involved with the draft. And you have to count on these players to execute and improve. And if they don't do it, a lot of that is on the player. It's not on the coach. It's not on the GM. It's not on the owner. It's nothing like that. It's the player
100%.
themselves. But people need someone to blame.
Exactly, and that's what it is. I mean, it's like you said. I think you summed it up well. It's too early to tell what his run as a GM is going to look like. He is not. He hasn't been perfect. No GM is, but like you said, he's following the shadow of one of the greatest to ever do it.
No.
And if that is the bar, and if that is always going to be the bar, then that bar is ridiculous.
I'll tell you.
And here's the other thing too, right? And I'm sorry for stepping on toes there, but like, people don't take into account that EDC had a huge hand in some of these drafts before
100%.
he actually became the GM.
Right.
So these things that they're praising Ozzy for, Eric had a big hand in that.
Yeah.
So you can't praise Ozzy and say Eric is trash at the same time. You can't do it.
Well, and you also, if anybody that looks at that isn't also looking at the value. EDC is one of, we've said it multiple times on the show. EDC is one of the best to do it with finding the biggest bang for the lowest buck. He is really good at that. He finds guys that can make impacts, guys that everybody else is overlooking. Right? The guy that I know he got injured, but before he got injured, I pointed to him as being the prime example was LJ Fort.
Yeah.
LJ Fort made an impact on this team, and we got him at relatively low cost. And when you're starting to do that, and you're starting to look at some of these value players, impact style players that everybody's looking off, and you say, okay, EDC is bringing these guys in, and these guys are playing at calibers of money that's why some of these guys go elsewhere, is because they've shown what they can do, and everybody else is willing to overpay them.
To that point, I mean, that's the totality of the GM job, right? You're looking at everything that the GM does.
It's not just one thing.
Where EDC is getting most of his critics on Twitter and social media is from his draft class, not what he does in his trade ability, not what he does in free agent signings. Those have been pretty good, and everybody's been pretty happy with that, except for obviously the big Earl Thomas miss. But who could have predicted that? Nobody saw that coming.
No.
But the other part of that is too, you have idiots like at Lamar Heisman who say EDC is the worst GM in the NFL.
The mute button is a beautiful thing, my friend.
Marcus Peters and Calais Campbell. Like, you can't love Marcus Peters and Calais Campbell being on the Ravens and then say EDC is the worst GM in the NFL.
Exactly.
Like, fuck off.
Yeah, no.
Exactly.
And to your point, Chibs, I think you like Fred said, you hit the nail on the head when it comes to the draft side of things. When I look at it, you can't judge a lot of these guys to your point. They're hit or miss type situations. That's why do you think the Ravens love to stockpile draft picks, especially EDC over his tenure so far? He's had, I believe, the most draft picks in this time span than we've ever had.
Right.
And it's because he's looking and he's taking that gamble and saying, I'm willing to take the gamble, and more shots I take, the more likely I am to hit. Right? The more money you put down on the roulette table, well, guess what? You're bound to hit somewhere, right? So that's what's happening. But sometimes you hit big on the smallest bet, and sometimes you don't. It's the gamble that you take with the NFL draft. How many times have we seen first rounders not work out?
Right, and they're in a good position this year with, like you said, 9 picks. I think it's in the first 4 rounds, right? So they've got a ton of ammo this year, and we'll see what they do. But let's talk positional needs and priorities before we dive into like potential picks, right? Because in my opinion, we have about 4 or 5 positional groups with major holes or needs at this point. So no particular order. We'll start at the most obvious, I think, which is the outside rush, right? You got Owe coming into his second year, Bowser coming off an Achilles injury. Like you mentioned earlier, Ferguson.
I will argue with you immediately.
Okay, all right. Bear with me. Let me get through this, right? So Ferguson, like you said, at times he's been kind of tough to watch, especially as a rush threat. You got Hayes coming into his second year, right? Didn't play a whole lot coming off the injury, played a couple of snaps last year. Justin Houston, gone for now. Pernell McPhee potentially retiring, right? So there are some question marks there. I'm not saying it's the biggest need, but it is a definite need. But go ahead and make your case.
So I'm not going to argue with you in the way you think that I am.
No, you're good.
I don't think it's just the outside pass rush.
Okay.
I want pass rush from anywhere we can get it. And the interior pass rush has been a question mark for the Ravens for a long time.
Agree with that.
So, if you have guys like, let's just throw a hypothetical situation in here, right? Because everybody loves Jordan Davis. So if you got Jordan Davis, Mike Pierce, Calais Campbell clogging the interior, then you're opening stuff up for guys like Dalen Hayes or Odafe Owe or even Jalen Ferguson they have clearer lanes on the outside. So I understand that like outside linebackers, they get all the sacks and everything like that, and it's flashy and everyone loves like the sack number, even though that's not the end all be all stat for a pass rusher. But if you can get sacks from the interior, I think it's just as important as the outside.
You hit the nail on the head that, the second spot, that this is a spot that Fred and I do agree on as far as being a spot that it's going to be a focus, is that really that defensive line as a whole, right? You're getting Campbell back, but how many snaps is he actually going to get? How effective is he going to be, right? You've got Big Baby, who's now gone. You replace him with Michael Pierce. Okay. Derek Wolfe, back injury. Who the hell knows when he's coming back, if he ever comes back, from what we've been hearing. McPhee, most likely probably going to retire, or if somehow he comes back, it is on an absolute minimum deal with the Ravens if they're going to offer him anything. And then you got Mattabeast and Broderick Washington going into year 3. Some production out of both of those, but not the full production that we would have thought. We did see and we did hear that Madubuike did make some leaps last year.
Yeah,
hopefully he makes another leap.
It wasn't as big of a leap as everybody had hoped, I think. The fan base was really, really high on him. I know I was high going into the preseason that he would make a big jump from year 1 to year 2. I still think he was a very effective player. It just wasn't quite where I expected him to be year 2.
I think that's because people expected Mads to be Aaron Donald.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
and
that goes back to the whole like pandering, like clickbait, young kid mentality. Is that I think a lot of people have expectations that are set too high.
Right.
Yeah.
So I understand that people want greatness. I want greatness. I want Super Bowl rings. Absolutely. However, you can't have expectations that are that high. I think Mads is going to be a great player. You also have to take into account that the rest of the defense was demolished by injuries. And once players start going down, that in turn makes it harder on other players to produce.
Quick snapshot of your feelings on bringing Michael Pierce back. Were you happy with that signing? Did you think it was a good value?
I'm not sure about the value. Yeah, he played in limited games in 2021.
Right.
But he did produce his highest production in his last year with the Vikings. So if he continues on that trend, I'm absolutely cool with it. I would like to see him get replaced by a younger player halfway through the year. If we have one that's producing better than him, I would like to see him get pushed out. I don't think he is your starting caliber ideal DL.
So he's basically the stopgap for now, with hopes that they fill that position through the draft, hopefully this year.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, so let's move on to your favorite position group, cornerback, right? Because it's a major need here, man. They lost a ton.
You've got him drooling. I don't even need to see a picture of him. He's drooling right now. I can hear it.
Well, that's just because I want to fight about it.
All right. Well, when you look at the totality of this thing, man, they lost a ton through free agency. Anthony Aver, gone. Tavon Young, gone. Chris Westry, gone. Jimmy Smith, potentially retiring as well. Your two studs and Marlon and Marcus coming back from injuries. This is a big concern of mine as the roster stands today. You do have Brandon Stevens and Ardarius Washington out there who could slide in at the nickel and help out if need be. Probably more Ardarius Washington, because I think the team stands to be pretty high on Brandon Stevens as a rotational safety back there. But not sure that's the best plan moving forward. I think that this is definitely going to be an area that they target in this draft.
I mean, I'm inclined to agree with you.
Yeah.
You either look for, they could go one of three ways. Okay, first they could draft a true outside corner, a guy like Stingley,
right?
And that would push Marlon inside to the slot, and then you're taken care of at that point, assuming no injuries. They could go for a true slot corner like Roger McCreary at 45,
right?
And then you have Marcus and Marlon outside, Roger inside, or you get a guy with versatility. There's a few guys in the middle rounds that I really like as far as versatility goes. and that kind of gives you a little bit of an insurance policy if something happens to one of the outside guys. Because then you could move, the versatile guy outside, and then our Darius Washington would go into the slot.
Exactly.
And I mean, I'm still pretty high on our Darius Washington. I like his teammate much more than him, but I do think as a slot guy, our Darius is probably, I think, my slot CB3 maybe last year.
Right.
So the fact that he went undrafted was wild to me.
Right. I personally, I think beyond just finding out whether they need that extra boundary guy and sliding Marlon in or bringing in a new slot guy, they need at least, at the very minimum, at least 2 guys
100%.
at this. Because you saw what happened last year with all the injuries and how god-awful that secondary was when guys started going down, especially from a communication standpoint. You've got to have the depth there. If you want to be one of the top echelon teams, you can't just have a lucky rabbit foot in your back pocket and hopefully nobody gets fucking hurt.
Right, exactly. And that's my thing here, right? You have to do 2 things in this draft. You have to look whether it's early, whether it's mid, or I don't think it's made late. I think to Chibs' point, right? It's one of those things. I think this is where they pick up a mid rounder, right, and a guy that they could wind up getting to be their future corner. He's a little bit of a project, not necessarily the starter day one, but he's he can fill in as he gets to the NFL level. Maybe a 4th, 5th round guy that could come in and be that future cornerback, because you have 2 guys that you're paying a lot of fucking money to right now.
Right.
So there's a couple of guys on day 3 that kind of fit that bill too. At that point, you're talking about like Zion McCollum, Josh Joby, guys like that. Kobe Bryant probably goes on day 2. But he's another like end of day 2 guy. And those 3 guys for sure. There's a few other names. Armour Davis. Those guys could come in and redshirt and be pretty good starters in 2023, maybe 2024, depending on how contracts play out.
Right.
But the other part of it is too that if you just get one guy in the draft, which I think they come away with at least 2 corners.
Right.
Yeah. But if you just came away with 1 or 2 guys in the draft, there are still good free agents.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Right. Callahan, a couple other guys that could fit into the slot. You sign one of those guys after the draft, and all of a sudden your cornerback room looks a lot better than it does, on April 25th, 2022.
Not to mention, let's not forget one of the best things the Ravens are good at is signing those undrafted free agents. They are on the phone before the draft is even over with those undrafted guys. I feel like with the hey, why don't we let's talk when this is all over, because they're so good at doing that, and that's why they've had depth over the past several years, because they're getting those guys.
Yeah, but you're not banking on any of those guys being an impact player year one. No,
but you're banking on them being depth for your practice squad and for long term, right? If you run into an issue, you have the depth there. We've seen that they've been able to do well at that.
Well, let's talk about the next position. Oh, go ahead.
One more thing. Yeah. So even if they get their full 10 draft picks, right? If they walk away with 10 players in the draft, they're going to have space for like 15 or 17 undrafted free agent players.
Right.
Like, you're kind of betting on one of those guys. Like, if you can find the Kurt Warner of cornerback, then
at a grocery store,
they're in a pretty good spot. You know what I mean?
That's absolutely true. But I think your point's great, and I said that last week, is that there are some options out there in free agency that you don't force the pick if it's not there, but the need for at least 2, if not 3 guys is definitely there, whether it's through the draft or free agency. But let's talk the next position group. Shout out to our boy Cole Jackson, because this is his favorite position group, offensive line. If you're not following Cole Jackson, you're missing out, man. Follow him on Twitter. You don't know his handle off the top of your head, do you?
It's at Cole Jackson FB, as in football.
Man, that guy's popularity is going through the roof, and the amount of time that he's putting into the research and all the projects that he's working on, he's doing big things.
I've been on a few spaces with him on Twitter, and he's
a hell of a guy too, man.
He is a talker, and he can get real deep on you with some of the information. So he's been interesting to listen to and watch.
One more thing about the corners too. Yeah. There's been some chatter about my wife's team, the Giants, and James Bradbury being moved.
I've heard that.
I also heard that a certain team in purple reached out about Bradbury.
Why would the Vikings want Bradbury?
Dude, the Vikings need corners.
They need everything.
Holy shit. But if the Ravens can come away with a guy like Bradbury for, I don't know, one of the 19 fourth-round picks that they have, that's a steal as well. And there's your outside guy. Then you push Marlon inside, boom, boom, boom. Then you draft whoever.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Now that's very true. All right. So offensive line, right? Because we got some interesting news that came out today. We've been worried about Ronnie Stanley and the health of Ronnie Stanley, and we talked about this, that we didn't want to go into this year with the hope that he was going to be okay and not have an insurance policy. I mean, obviously the Villanueva project did not work out very well last year, and we were scrambling for help on the left side of the line, right? So how healthy actually is he? Go ahead, James.
It's smoke now.
It could be. I mean, everything around the draft you always expect to be smoke, right? But
face.
everything that they're saying is that he's responding well to his recovery and everything, and that he will be ready for the 2022 situation, for the 2022 season. But I still don't feel comfortable with that, right? And I don't think the Ravens want to go through another season like they did last year. You got Juwan James, who hasn't played football in a hot minute, so we don't really know what we have there. Is he more of a left or right side guy? Remains to be seen in this offense.
I was going to say, does he fit in the scheming?
Right.
Can he block in this scheming?
Right.
Same with Moses Malone.
Well, Moses Malone, they did sign him to be the right tackle guy, and that's where he's played. And
Morgan Moses.
Morgan Moses. Sorry.
Yeah. Moses Malone.
That's what it says. I messed up.
I think I typed that wrong. They brought him in to be on the right side of the line.
You did that.
I did. To shore it up. Then are you sold on Macari and Castillo manning the center position? I mean, the Ravens say that they're okay and that they're comfortable with Macari at the center position. How do you feel about this offensive line group as it stands right now?
So as it stands right now, like if you're banking on health, then you have Ronnie Stanley at left tackle. You have Ben Cleveland or Tyree Phillips at left guard. And then you have, we're going to say Macari because let's face it, they didn't pay Macari that much money to be on the bench. So it'd be Macari at center. Then you have Kevin Zeitler at right guard. And at right tackle, you have Morgan Moses. So, I mean, that's an above average offensive line. It might even be good. So the thing with Tyree Phillips, right? I mentioned him because people hated him at tackle, and they absolutely should have hated him at tackle. But he's good at guard.
He's good. Yep, agreed.
Yeah. So, you got to keep that in mind when you hear that name.
Right.
So I'm not the biggest offensive line guy. I don't claim to be. I generally refer to Cole if I need to figure something out there.
Right.
But I don't think offensive line, if we're assuming health, offensive line is not as big of a need as people have made it out to be. And I'm not so sure that the Ronnie Stanley thing is necessarily smoke, because I'm not sure that the team would have released that if it was smoke. Like, it might make people think that they're not looking at an offensive tackle, but I also don't think they were necessarily looking at an offensive tackle to begin with, if that makes sense.
But I think the thing with that statement, though, would be the fact that just, a month ago, we weren't sure if Ronnie Stanley was ever going to come back. And now, all of a sudden, in a month, we went from, oh, yeah, we're really not sure. We're not sure the severity of this, to now, oh, he's going to be ready for the season. There's a little bit of smoke one way or the other. So the smoke was a month ago, or the smoke is now, which is why I think so many people are questioning, is the smoke now? Because now you're trying to get people off the scent and say, oh, yeah, we've got this guy, our guy, we're going to stick with him because we paid him, and it gets people thinking you're going to go a different direction, and then you wind up going the direction that they aren't thinking you're going. So that's where I think people are coming from, is that you have such this drastic change in narrative in just a few weeks' time. That's the piece. To that point, it's either smoke then or smoke now, which I think that's why a lot of people were leaning towards smoke now, because Ronnie even seemed to, when he did his last interview, he wasn't sure.
I mean, we saw him jogging backwards on the beach, right? Isn't that enough for you, Scott?
Sure.
So my question would be, who started the whole Ronnie may never play again thing?
Right.
Does anyone know who started that?
No.
I mean, I can't say who.
Yeah, exactly. Where it came from, but it went all over the place.
I mean, if it was Adam Schefter, let's go ahead and just get the biggest grain of thought we can fucking find. But if it's not Ian Rappaport or Jeff or Sarah or someone like that reporting that, Ronnie may never play again, then who gives a shit?
Right.
People see things on Twitter that come from like Reddit, some random guy on Reddit saying, well, I heard like Ronnie may never play again because it's nerve damage or something like that. Like, who cares? Right? So people buy into these narratives and they run with them, and then it spreads through the fan base like wildfire.
Right.
And then when something like this happens, especially around draft time, people are like, oh, well, that's a smoke screen. Why is it so hard for people to be positive?
Right.
Don't get me wrong. When I was first on Twitter, you guys know I'm negative motherfucker. I was mean all the time, super negative. But why is it? So it's a little odd for me to be like, why is it so hard to be positive? But I've grown as a human.
Right.
And I've learned that, like, it's okay to be positive sometimes, guys.
Right.
It's okay. So don't freak out on day one when they don't take Trevor Penning. Actually, half the fan base would be happy if they don't take Trevor Penning, let's be honest. But you get the point.
Right. Yeah, and this report came from Rappaport too. So I mean, if there's anybody who's reputable or anybody I trust in the NFL world,
so as we were talking, I kind of looked it up. So as of 1 month ago, according to this CBS Fantasy, it was Jameson Hensley reported Harbaugh saying in the presser that they had no timetable for Stanley's return. So I think that's
during the Liars luncheon.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's to the point that I was making earlier, though. It was either smoke then or it's smoke now.
Liars luncheon's always smoke.
Right, exactly. But that's where people run with
Harbaugh ever said anything meaningful?
Right. Especially when it comes to
injuries.
Exactly. Especially when it comes to injuries.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
Fair enough.
So the tight end group's another position with a need that I don't think gets talked about enough, at least in my opinion. As the offense is designed now, I think it flourishes more in a 2 receiving tight end threat. Beyond Mark Andrews, who is that threat, right? You got Nick Boyle, who isn't the Boyle he once was, and I don't think he ever will because of that leg injury. I mean, it was devastating, right? So I don't think he'll ever be 100% again. And again, first priority with him was always blocking. It wasn't receiving. That was just an added benefit.
The thing with that, though, is Josh Oliver was kind of coming into his own. He showed flashes, right? It wasn't, but he also didn't get that many chances. That's the big thing here is I'd love to see them have a tight end and go with 3 tight end sets, but we've seen them have tight ends in Tomlinson out there with Boyle. We've seen him have Tomlinson and Oliver, which Oliver was supposed to be that guy that was sure hands. He would be that guy that could catch. But they didn't do a whole lot of 3 tight end sets. So that's my only thing. I love the idea of the 3 tight end set because I think they proved that it worked with the right personnel. You have to find the right combination of personnel. Do we have it now? Maybe.
Listen,
go ahead.
They can make 3 tight end sets work with Mark Andrews, Hayden Hurst as rookies, and then your receivers being Willie Snead and Seth Roberts or whoever the hell.
Right.
Like, if they can make it work with those guys, you can make it work by grabbing another move tight end and inserting him into the offense. Because you're right. In 2019, the offense was light years ahead of what we've seen recently.
But to that point, do you think that they underutilized or I don't want to say didn't give Oliver the chance to flourish? Because many people, including myself, thought that he could be the guy that could kind of step into that role. But it didn't seem to me like they were scheming that way. Whether that's what's his face not scheming offensive coordinator. I can't think of his goddamn name right now. I'm so
Greg Roman.
Morningwig kept coming into mind for some reason, but I knew that wasn't it. So, but my whole point with that,
Jesus Christ.
I'm bad with names. All right, leave me alone. At least I can pronounce them right. So for me, Josh Oliver was that guy that could kind of come in and be that little bit of a diamond in the rough, but we didn't really get the chance to see that. Do you think it's there, or do you think it's not there, and that they would need to draft it if they're going to go that route?
I would prefer that they draft it if they're going to go that route, mainly because, we've kind of seen Josh Oliver on the field, and it didn't really go that well.
Right.
Now, part of it is definitely the Ravens outthinking themselves and being like, well, we did this in 2019, so other teams are going to expect it now, and they're going to know how to defend it, so we got to evolve our offense. The problem with that is they couldn't stop it in 2019. So why not try it again and see what happens? So I think you're fair in saying that Josh Oliver didn't really get the opportunities that he should have. I also think it's fair to say that Josh Oliver is probably not the guy.
Agreed. And then we don't know from an insider's perspective, was he having trouble picking up the offense? You know what I mean? He fit the bill. He fit the bill as far as size and athleticism goes. But, again, it was his first year into the system. Was he having a hard time picking up the terminology? Did he just not have a good rapport with Lamar? There's many of things that we just aren't privy to that could have been going on.
Well, I mean, there's a reason that the Jaguars let him go for a conditional, Mr. Irrelevant pick. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you got to take that into consideration too.
Exactly.
Maybe he's just not the guy, which is fine. Maybe he flourishes elsewhere, which is fine. Good for him. However, if he's not going to help the Ravens offense, there's no point in having him.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little draft strategy, right? Because I talked about this earlier. I mean, historically, the Ravens love to stockpile picks. And again, they're in a situation this year where they've got 10 total, 9 in the first 4 rounds. We've seen them move back in the draft to grab even more picks time after time. I mean, that's just what they've done. But I need to remind you, 2016, what that class looked like when we were in a very, very similar situation, right? We had 8 picks in the first 4 rounds. It was that whole mantra of just, hey, take as many shots as you can, and you're going to miss on some, but maybe you'll find, a shot in the dark.
Yeah.
You got Ronnie Stanley. We missed a lot. We missed a lot that year.
A lot. Yeah.
That was a
Bronson Kafusi.
Yeah, yeah. You had Kamale Correa. You had Chris Moore, who stuck around for a while, but just never, really contributed.
That's because he was a damn special teams guy.
Yeah,
listen, we're not going to talk about Chris Moore. All right, we're not.
You had Alex Lewis, Willie Henry, Kenneth Dixon, Matt Judon was the big hit late in that. Keenan Reynolds, Maurice Canaday, who stuck around for a few years.
Oh, we're not going to talk about him, man.
But I'm just saying, so it doesn't always work out.
Let's put it this way. Who in the 2016 draft can we talk about?
Right. Well,
I literally can't talk about Maurice Canaday. His agent asked me not to. So,
but
out of respect for Alex, I won't do it anymore.
All right.
Well, we've heard the rumors going around today that maybe this is the year, right? Maybe this is the year that the Ravens use some of those picks and some of the ammo that they have to actually move up in the draft. Could that be their strategy this year? I mean, what do you see potentially shaking out here in this draft? Do you think this is more of a stand pat year, or do you think they move around?
All right, so here's the thing, right? One notion I want to dispel is that the Ravens move back more than they move up.
Okay.
I haven't checked the numbers since 2019 or something like that. So between 2019 and 2022, maybe this has changed. But before then, the Ravens had actually moved up 51% of the time and moved back. So essentially, they moved up more than they moved back.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's weird. Maybe not always in the first round, but
right.
Those are how the numbers fell out.
Huh.
I don't view this as a super top-heavy draft. If you're talking about a guy like Kayvon Thibodeau, Derek Stingley, Jermaine Johnson, let's see, who else? Maybe if an Evan Neal fell, I would probably jump up for him for sure, regardless of what the tackle situation is.
Right.
If you're talking about guys like that fall to 10, yeah, go get them. Absolutely. Don't care what it takes. Make it happen. Kyle Hamilton, that's obviously one of them, which the overthinking on him is absolutely absurd. But other than that, I mean, this seems like a draft where the meat of it is after the first 12, 15 picks.
Right.
Where you're going to get very good players, top-tier players, at the back half of the first round and second round and even into the third round, because we all know that the draft boards always fall a little weird. And the fact that there's no consensus top 5 players or even top 1 player in this draft makes me think that moving up is only going to be for maybe 2 or 3 specific guys, unless the QB or wide receiver needy team thinks that guys are going to go super early.
Or the other scenario that you could see here too is the Ravens stay pat at 14, but the other side of it could be taking some of those middle picks and moving back into the first round again, kind of like they did with Lamar late in the first round, just simply to get that extra year, that 5th year of eligibility under the rookie contract.
Well, especially since you're about to pay Lamar a mega contract,
right?
Allegedly. So
whenever that happens,
having a couple of rookies for 5-year deals like studs is a good move to make.
right?
Especially if you're looking at guys like, can you imagine a scenario where they stand pat at 14, Jermaine Johnson falls, boom, you get a pass rusher, right?
Right.
And then you can move back into the end of the first round and pick up a guy like, I mean, there's no way Derek Stingley falls that far, but if Derek Stingley's there, you move up and take him, and then you got your pass rusher and or even if you want to move back up and maybe grab David Ojabo.
Well, I was saying,
because now you have
Right.
Jermaine Johnson and Odafe out away. And then you're like, oh, well, now I got Ojabo for 2023. So
Exactly.
yeah, and I think to your point, right, the Stingley thing. Ideally, a lot of people don't think he's going to fall, but we've seen other guys go up the draft board. We've seen him fall a little bit, and I think the hesitation is the injury in a lot of the mock drafts, right? For a lot of people.
But he had a Liz Frank injury and ran a 4.3.
Right, exactly. But that's what I'm saying. Is somehow if he falls for some reason because people aren't there, then yeah, absolutely, you're trading back in and you're figuring out a way to make that happen. If he's still there at 24, anything after that, 25 through 32, I'm fine with them trading back in to get him.
Right.
100%.
I don't think he makes it past 9. Honestly, I don't think he makes it past.
So you don't even think Stingley would be a guy that would be there? I know we're going to get into all these, but not at 14.
I don't think he'll be there at 14.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, the mock
I don't,
drafts have changed. They've evolved every day as we've gotten closer and closer to this thing, and he's moved up and down the board. Who knows? I mean, the draft is such a wild card. It never goes like anybody's mock.
So let's do this.
But here's the thing with mocks, right? So like the media or draft analysts or like just draft Twitter will lash on to a player and start talking about them, and it makes you perceive other players as falling. When in reality, it's just other players being brought to the forefront because people like new and shiny.
Right.
So, squirrel. And all of a sudden, Trent McDuffie is just a hot pick at 14 for no particular reason other than like somebody mentioned.
Right.
So, and then in 2 weeks, squirrel. Derek Stingley might be there at 14. It doesn't make any sense, but there it is.
Yeah. It's
Well,
true.
the computer's completely random with the mocks too. That's the problem sometimes.
Yeah.
So all right. So before we really get into who the Ravens could, will, won't go after, we want to ask you, give us your top 3 overall players in this draft. Because to your point, it's a weird year.
It's a weird year, man. You don't have like the top echelon of the draft filled with quarterbacks. You don't have those 2-3 quarterbacks, or even with some years with we've seen 4 and 5 quarterbacks go early in the first round, right? You don't have that this year. It's kind of strange. So who are your 3 like can't miss guys in this draft? Again, doesn't have to be Ravens related or positional related. Top 3 like superstars in this draft.
Okay, so just overall, not necessarily available. Okay, so Kyle Hamilton is the best player in this draft.
Okay.
Don't overthink it. Kyle Hamilton is
I like him a lot for many reasons.
Overall prospect, period.
Okay.
I don't care what people say about his 40 time. I don't care what people say, oh, he's a box safety. No. Kyle Hamilton, 108, period.
Okay.
Next is Derek Stingley.
Wow.
If you have Derek Stingley on a team that can bring him to his ceiling, which 2019 was not a ceiling, by the way. He's better than his 2019 tape showed. One of the best corners in the NFL.
And the injury history doesn't worry you at all?
Does not scare me. We see guys that get injured in college and they're never injured in the NFL.
Okay.
So I'm not worried about that. I'm not the injury. There was a guy that told me today that David Ojabo was now trash because he had an Achilles injury. I'm not here for that stuff. Number 3, probably Aiden Hutchinson.
Okay.
I like what he did in Michigan. I like his attitude, his motor. An argument could be made for me to say Kayvon Thibodeau, but that's probably just because he somehow referenced spades in an interview today, and that just immediately boosted his stock for me. So.
Right. So for me, I think I agree with most of your picks. The tough one that I would exclude in that top 3 might be Evan Neal, just because he has such a high floor. Like, that guy is already solid. It could be a day 1 starter right away, no question. And he's just got a perfect body for a left tackle. I mean, he doesn't have a whole lot of fat on his body at all. Athletic is all get out. His footwork looks good from everything that I've seen. I'm not a big offensive line guy, but he is a guy that could come in and be a difference maker at left tackle for anybody. Yeah, in my opinion. So
I like Icky more than I like Neal.
Really,
at tackle, if we're being honest. But it's extremely close.
Okay. All right. Well, before we talk about the names and the players specifically, James, give us a social media shout out, man. Who's been in the chat room? Any good questions? Anything that everybody's saying?
The chat room has been lit.
Good.
My paper
Good, man.
is filled from top to bottom.
Well, give us 3 questions or 3 statements. Your top 3 out of there.
I have 2 because mostly everything, but the top 2 have been basically what everybody's saying. Like Vinny has said, I think we should trade back in the first and sort of do like how we got Lamar and Hurst that year.
So trading back into the bottom end.
Later in. And then Dave said he wants to just trade back and maybe get some better picks to have more in the second. So
the problem with that, though, is finding a trade partner. You know what I mean? Especially in a draft like this where the word is that every team is hey, there's going to be a bunch of good guys in the second. So finding a trade partner to trade back with and to give up those second-round picks, which are considered premium picks, that's a tough ask.
Yeah, and another thing that we haven't really discussed is this year the quarterbacks are not I have to have. So
right.
Now we sort of get screwed because a guy that we need a defensive end or a corner is going to get taken a little bit higher than years past. So it sucks. So I'm hoping that we have the Raiders, but the Raiders are not in the high picks anymore. And then apparently Dallas says they're going to trade up because they like their.
I was thinking NFC
too.
East. You got the Eagles have what is it? It's 3 picks in 8 picks or something like that they have.
They've did all that trading with the Saints and all that.
Right, but if somebody wants to get out in front of them, if somebody in the NFC East, like a Dallas or a Washington or the Giants, if they think they've got something, if they want to trade up, they would be the trade partners because they want to get in front of the Eagles, their division rival, to take a guy that maybe the Eagles are looking at.
So from what I've heard, the Giants want to move out of the top 10 with one of their picks. I'm going to assume it's probably number 7 because I'm sure they want to keep 5-0A. I've heard the Eagles want to move up, and then I've heard Dallas wants to move up.
But this, like I said, I'm excited about Thursday because this is going to be a different draft than we have ever seen. I think we might choke on some food a little bit because of this. But there are not really no quarterbacks that say, hey, they're flying off the board, so we're going to get our guy.
That's kind of why I think we might actually move up in this draft from 14 is because you get a team like Carolina, right? Who is it? I think 6 or 18 or 6 or 8 overall. They're 6th. Okay. Yeah. So I think a team like that who is in the market for a quarterback has already turned down the Baker Mayfield thing. Yeah. Feels like they could get that Malik Willis or
somebody,
whoever they want at 14. And get some extra ammo later in those mid rounds, and the Ravens move up to 6 to maybe get a Thibodeau or a Stingley or something.
Either way, they're probably going to be back up high in the draft next year, so they can get their quarterback.
So Carolina
good
is a really good trade up option because they pick at 6, and then 161 is their next pick.
Wow. Yeah, so I think that's a good fit for the Ravens to move up, especially, again, if they've got their guy, if Thibodeau is their guy or Stingley is their guy or whoever it might be, that 6th spot is a real good spot to potentially land one of those guys, in my opinion.
And, And Dave said, question for Terps fans. Any sneaky Terps in the draft this year? We discussed some, so you want to go over a couple?
I mean, I'm real high on Chigakonkwo. I'm real high on Chigakonkwo as a tight end. I think he'd be a good fit in this offense. I understand maybe size-wise he doesn't have the height, but I think his versatility in this offense can be used in multiple facets. Nick Cross, I think he's a super underrated safety in this draft. I think he's probably going to go late 3rd, early 4th. I would love to see him on this team if we don't get a Kyle Hamilton.
The Terps season really hurt him because he had to cover for too many guys, and it wound up hurting what would be his value. He'd probably be higher.
His versatility and he can play. He's a track guy, right? So he can run. Right. He can be that free guy, but he can also play in the box. There's a lot I like about Nick Cross. I don't know if you have any opinion on him. Have you looked at him at all?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a box safety.
Yeah, okay.
at the next level. Yeah, he does, I mean, which is fun. He could even play some linebacker if we needed to. He's like he'd be Anthony Levine kind of, but higher ceiling.
Okay, I like it. And Sam O, another guy who could go late in the draft.
Just brought it up.
Yeah, Sam O could go late in the draft, maybe an undrafted free agent. He's almost like a Corey Redding kind of guy. If you remember him back in the day, he reminds me a lot of him and his ability. I think he'd be I think he's going very, very underrated. He, at his pro day, smashed all of the strength and conditioning tests compared to what everybody was doing at the combine, bench reps and all that stuff. I know you don't take a whole lot of that with you, but it's got to mean something. And again, watching him firsthand at all the home games, he's a dominant player.
Yeah, so don't forget, if Nick does go in the third round, you guys get some nice swag.
Nice.
All right, so let's talk about some names, the players, the guys most commonly being mocked in the Ravens in the first round, and get your quick takes on each of them. Fred,
A lot of them we've already talked about, man, but I'm going to start with, again, the group that you know best, DBs, right? So I know you've been foaming at the mouth to talk about these guys, especially one in particular, the guy that most fans are drooling over, the guy that I think if you are going to trade up, a lot of Ravens fans would like to see them add. Sauce Gardner out of Cincinnati, 6'3", 190 pounds, seems to do very well at zone and press coverage on tape, good ball skills. Is he what you would consider an elite boundary corner or no?
Buddy guarded grocery baggers for most of his career. Like, the level of competition, I feel like, just isn't really there for Gardner. Like, yeah, he had some good games against SEC teams, namely Alabama this year. But, like, that's a very small sample size if you're going to call him an elite corner.
Okay.
So I'm not as high on Gardner as most people are. Plus, I think Sauce is a really stupid fucking nickname.
I 100% agree with you, and thank you for saying it.
But, like, so the kid doesn't have any technique. His technical refinement is just non-existent. So I'm a guy who loves a corner who can ball hawk. But if you're going to be a ball hawk corner, you're going to take chances. And if you take chances, you have to have the technique to back it up just in case you make a bad decision. Marcus Peters can do that.
Right.
All right. So
Sauce Gardner cannot do that. And then, he's penalized and he's really handsy and he's scrawny as shit. So.
Right.
Sounds like a project.
Yeah, I mean, for a guy that high in the first round, you don't want to have that many question marks. And again, a smaller guy, I don't know, doesn't fit the mold for me, especially for a guy you got to trade up and give up a lot of draft capital for.
One thing that you mentioned. Go ahead.
A buddy of mine actually wrote an article, and it was titled something like "When Are Corners Too Tall?" And Gardner, at his build, is too tall.
Right.
If you want to be that way, like 187 or something like that, like you got to be a little bit shorter.
Right. Yeah, he's very lanky.
So one of the things you mentioned with Sauce is kind of that downfall is the competition that he faced. Not necessarily a guy that he faced, but it's a guy that he went through. So Derek Stingley out of LSU, 6 foot, 190 pounds. There's that little bit shorter frame. Let's talk about very similar weight. But there's practice footage of him locking down the one guy that the Ravens really would like to see divisionally, him or anybody locked down, in Jamar Chase. So there's tape of him doing that. He gets high praise from Patrick Queen, another great athlete. He's got exceptional ball skills, but again, the injury history. Obviously, you mentioned Stingley earlier, so you really seem to like Stingley.
I mean, I love Stingley, dude. Like, his hands are great. His feet are great. He's a prototype build. He's a hell of an athlete. He's fast enough. And obviously, I mean, you look at the practice stuff, he knows Jamar Chase. So if you're worried about Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and whoever the fuck else on the Bengals, like, if you're worried about them, then Derek Stingley's your guy. You know what I mean? Like, exactly. He's going to help you shut down the high-flying teams like the Bengals and I guess the Chiefs, if they're still going to be high-flying without Tyreek Hill. Or even like the Dolphins or the Raiders. Or, the AFC is loaded right now.
Jerry Jeudy.
And Jerry Jeudy, Mike Williams, if A.J. Brown stays in Tennessee, guys like that, if Debo comes to the AFC, you need a defense to stop these guys from scoring. And somebody said to me one time, it's on my old account at Lay Around Corner. We'll talk about that later. Somebody was like, you need to have an offense to outscore these guys. And I was like, you need to have a fucking defense to stop them.
Right.
Like, I get that everybody loves the offensive players and the splash plays and the touchdowns and the yards and this and that. Without a defense, football ain't football.
Right.
There's a reason people have, for years and years and years, have always gone to the adage, defense wins championships, because defense is not the less you have another team score, the more likely you can do only one score and win a game. And it's defense does truly win championships.
You just mentioned it a few minutes ago. Think about all the points that we put up in 2019 with the cast of characters that we had on that offense at that time. We were the leading scoring offense back then, right? Mm-hmm. And Lamar was just kind of getting his feet wet. It was his first full year in the offense. I think with a full gambit, of no weapons, injuries and all his weapons and everything, offensively, I think we're going to be okay. Defensively, you got Joe Burrow and all the guys that are out there in Cincinnati. I know it's a big if, but if Deshaun Watson is a part of the AFC North, holy fuck, the Browns just got a whole lot better. The Steelers, we still don't know what's up with the Steelers. I'm not really worried about them right now, but still, you got to fucking keep the points off the board. And we did not do a good job of that against fucking Cincinnati last year.
Nope,
40 points
and
twice.
There is always going to be the one person that's like, oh, well, Derek Stingley's tape in 2020 and 2021 wasn't as good as 2019. You're right. It was not as good. However, it was still good.
Yeah.
Right.
So if that is your floor for a cornerback, you take that at 14 all day, every day. I take that at 5 all day, every day.
Right. Well, let's go down the list, man, because there's a bunch of corners that are being mocked. Like you said, it seems like every other day another name pops up at the top 15 of the draft in this order. Andrew Booth, guy out of Clemson, 6 foot, 194 pounds. All these guys seem to be right around the same size. Like his highlight tape. I mean, I didn't watch him a whole lot, obviously playing in the ACC, and Clemson wasn't very good this year. Another one with some injury issues. I've also heard some character flaw issues. What do you think on Andrew Booth? Is he a top of the draft kind of guy? Do you take him at 14?
I would take him at 14. He's my CB2.
Okay.
Maybe CB3 at worst. The character flaw stuff just came out recently. I feel like that's probably, somebody trying to make him fall a little bit. He's a hell of an athlete as well. He's super twitchy, and I love twitchy corners. His measurables are all there. He's able to stay with receivers. It doesn't really seem to matter their speed. With corners, you pay attention to the 40 speed a little bit, but you want to pay attention to in-game speed more. And Andrew Booth has been able to stick with every single receiver that he has been put up against in every single game. So his injury history is a little sketchy, but again, I can't say like I'm okay with Derek Stingley's injury history and then be like, I don't like Andrew Booth because of his. Right. I think he'll be fine.
Okay. All right. Well, the other name that keeps popping up, especially with the Ravens, because he seems to be like the prototypical guy that the Ravens would go after from a character standpoint and what he brings to totality. Trent McDuffie out of Washington, 5'11", 193 pounds. High football IQ, high character grades, physical corner, even though he lacks a little bit of size. Not afraid to lay a hit and a good tackler. Do you think McDuffie's a future Raven?
I mean, he ran a 4.4, so I'm pretty sure that's why people are high on him. Okay. He's super tough. Like, he arrives violently, which is awesome. I love that. However, his size does worry me, especially when you're playing against big receivers like T. Higgins or Jamar Chase or Chase Claypool, or who's starting at wide receiver for the Browns? Donovan Peoples-Jones. He's a midget. He's fine. He just, I don't think that he holds up against big wideouts, and that's a problem when you look at all of the top tier wideouts in the NFL. They're all big wideouts. Right. So, and he's another guy that he did not have a lot of NFL level competition over the past few years. So the same problem that you see with Gardner, you see with Trent McDuffie. I do like his versatility. He's got inside-outside versatility. He could start at either position. He's got a lot of good going for him. I don't think you take him at 14. He screams top of the second round to me.
Okay. All right. Now, you've mentioned him a couple of times, and we've already talked about him a few times. Kyle Hamilton, right, out of Notre Dame, that you said number 1 overall player in this draft. Safety, 6'4", 220 pounds. Obviously projected to go well before the Ravens at 14. And the Ravens just paid Marcus. Well, depending on what mock you're following, right? Some have him real high, some have him falling down to the Ravens. But here's the thing. The Ravens just paid Marcus Williams a ton of money to be their ball hawk, right? You've got Chuck Clark out there as well. Is Hamilton just too good to pass up if somehow you can pull that off at 14?
So people want to talk about how the Ravens are the best player available mentality, and they will always take the best player available, whether it fits the need or not, even though as of late they take best player available that fits the need, which I like to call BPA/N. Kyle Hamilton, if he falls 14, there better be less than 3 seconds off the clock before that card's turned in. Kyle Hamilton is not just free safety or a box safety. He's also a nickel backer. He is also a nickel corner. He's probably got 5 position versatility. So he ran a slow 40. Anyone that comes to me is like, oh, he ran a slow 40. Go watch the tape. Tell me where that slow 40 is, please. He'll pull one game that shows me that Kyle Hamilton is running through molasses.
Let me ask you this, though, because you mentioned him and his versatility and how you can use him. I think his name was Isaiah Simmons, the kid that ended up going to the Cardinals. Would you compare him to him?
No. I think he has higher ceiling than Simmons.
Really? Okay.
Now, that is a good point, though. Kyle Hamilton will have to go somewhere where they know how to use him because of that versatility. But the other side of that is you could stick him in any of those positions that I named, and he would be a top player.
Okay. Could you do you think
have to use his versatility?
I was gonna say, from that versatility standpoint, is he a guy? Some people are talking about the linebacker core. Is he a guy that you could ask and help put on a little bit more weight and be a linebacker or float up in that linebacker? Given the fact that you mentioned he can play box safety, so you can have him up in the box, but also have him play some pass coverage at times.
Okay, so this is where his speed comes into question, right? If he's running a 4.5 and he puts some weight on.
Yeah, how much slower
essentially you're dropping that down to a 4.6, right? So at what point are you comfortable having him play Mike? Because he would have to play Mike. His football IQ almost demands it, and Patrick Queen was better at will than he was at Mike.
Right.
So if you're hypothetically saying like, hey, we're going to draft this guy at 14 and we're going to have him play Mike linebacker, how comfortable are you with his speed dropping when he's putting on weight? Plus, he's trying to pick up the nuances of playing that exclusively. And then what happens if somebody goes down and you need him to step back into a safety role or a corner role?
Right.
Then he has to shed the weight again. So that's a really complicated question because, one, you're not taking a Mike linebacker at 14.
Right.
Especially not a true Mike linebacker. A guy who isn't a true Mike linebacker, I meant to say. If that's their idea for them, I don't want them taking him at 14.
Right,
that's doing him a disservice.
Fair enough. I was just bringing up the whole piece of versatility. Could that be something? Is that something we think he could grab onto? And you kind of alluded to it.
Yeah.
What I was going after, which was this is one of the guys that has a football IQ that you can have him step into a leadership type role relatively quickly, but then it starts to limit him and what you need him to do or what you can have him do, because you can't have him be in that leadership role. We've seen them try to use safeties in the leadership role, and at times, for the most part, it doesn't work. You've got to have that middle linebacker be the guy that's really out there guiding everybody. You can't have somebody dropping back into being a free safety and making play calls. It doesn't usually work.
Right, because the free safety has to play freely. But if you're bringing in Kyle Hamilton to replace Chuck Clark, send it.
Exactly. Okay. I agree with that.
So let's look and let's slide down keep on the defense. Let's slide down into the front seven. Let's look at some potential edge and defensive front guys, and let's assume that Thibodeau and Hutchinson are gone. They're off table, not a choice. So a few guys that are being floated around. Jermaine Johnson, FSU, 6'5", 254. He's bounced around a bit in college, JUCO to Georgia to FSU. Great balance against the run and pass, right? He kind of gives you a little bit of the best of both worlds at times. Does he get you excited, and do you think he falls to the Ravens?
I'm sorry, repeat that question one more time. It kind of cut out there.
Does Johnson get you excited, and do you think he can actually fall to the Ravens at 14?
Yeah, I mean, he could definitely fall to the Ravens at 14. I think a name that's being left out, if we're just saying Aiden Hutchinson and Kayvon Thibodeau aren't going to be there, what about Trayvon Walker?
We're getting to him.
We're getting there.
He's the next guy we're bringing up.
Okay, gotcha. So Jordan Davis is, monster athlete, obviously. His combine was absolutely absurd. He ranks first in RAS out of all prospects of all time,
right?
Or, since it started being tracked. But the problem with him is he does have some pass rush use, but I think he's right now at this stage of his game, he's much more a run defender, which I guess fits the Baltimore Ravens mold, right? Look at Brandon Williams. He was a run defender, and people wanted him to pass rush.
Right.
If you're taking Jordan Davis at 14, fans have to expect some inconsistencies to his pass rush game.
Okay, so what do you think? So we were going to get to Davis in a little bit. What do you think about Jermaine Johnson?
No, that's what he's talking about.
Oh my God, dude! You said Jermaine Johnson, and I heard Jordan Davis.
Yeah, that's why I was like, I was sitting here looking at Fred going, did I miss something? Did I screw up a name again? It wasn't me this time, Chibs. It was you.
No, it was me. Jermaine Johnson's awesome. He's my so outside of Hutchinson and Thibodeau, because I honestly think there's no chance of getting either one of them. Jermaine Johnson is my ideal edge guy.
Okay.
All right.
Strong, powerful, quick. He has a good repertoire of pass rush moves. So if Jermaine Johnson is there at 14, which I don't know that he will be, there's talk of him actually going in the top 10. I don't know if that's just smoke or what.
Right.
But Jermaine Johnson, if you walk away from Thursday night with Jermaine Johnson as your pick at 14, you had a really good night.
Yeah, I agree. I like Jermaine Johnson a lot.
Yeah.
I think he'd be a good fit in this defense. Now, you mentioned him already. Trayvon Walker, the kid out of Georgia, 6'5", 270 pounds. This is a guy's name who's been all over mock draft boards, and I'm telling you, I've seen him go as high as number 1 overall, and I think it was Chris Sims' latest mock, to even down
wild.
to, I know, right, exactly. And I've seen him go all the way down to where the Ravens are in that 14 to 15 area. He's got rare strength and quickness at his size, can move inside or outside. What's your thoughts on Walker?
So, first of all, his name's not Trayvon. It is Yuri.
Another Oway situation, huh?
Yeah, I don't know how many people know that.
I don't know that.
Yeah, his name is Yuri Trayvon Walker.
Interesting.
And I like that. I like the name Yuri. It's fun to say. So I like him. He's big, powerful, not necessarily as explosive as you would like, especially if you're going to move him inside. He seems to struggle a little bit with his explosiveness inside, a little bit less outside, but it's still not as explosive as you would like to see. He definitely, his hands, dude, I would not want to get hit by that guy.
Yeah.
And the bull rush is just insane with him. So if you've got Oway speed rushing on one side and you've got Walker just bull rushing the shit out of a right tackle on the other side, I mean, that creates a nice little 1-2 punch. The versatility is cool, but in the Ravens situation where you don't really have another outside guy besides Oway and Bowser whenever he comes back, you don't really want to move Walker inside too much. So that kind of limits the versatility.
I'm interested to see with McDonald what he does with that defensive front, because we saw a lot of
big
movement
question
on that
mark right
defensive
now.
front under Wink. So it'll be interesting to see if he kind of fills that same mantra.
Yeah. So the other guy that I want to take a second to
It'll
get
be nice not to have a pass or a blitz dialed up on 3rd and 17.
So the other guy that I know that the chat room has been chiming in left and right. I've seen this name I don't know how many times in the chat room at this point. But George Karlaftis, the guy out of Purdue, 6'4", 275, one of the best power rushers in the draft, according to many people. This kid is a friend of the show. Ellis McKinney sung high praises for him. Former Terps offensive lineman that said as a freshman, George was an absolute monster and a player to watch. He wasn't wrong. The question becomes, is he the right fit for the Ravens if he's there?
So, I mean, this is kind of the opposite of what I was saying against with Davis, right? Like, also Karlaftis is just not good against the run.
Right.
So I think that's the biggest weakness that you're looking at there. He's not very twitchy, which I don't love from an edge rusher. That being said, speaking of guys that arrive violently, George Karlaftis is one of them.
100%.
He is a camera shaking, ground shaking. You will hear him hit somebody, knock the helmet off, bloody a nose kind of guy, which, let's be honest, this defense has missed that up front ever since Terrell Suggs left. So I like Karlaftis. I don't like him at 14. He's definitely, we talked earlier about trading back. He's definitely a guy that if you want to take him in the first round, I prefer you take him in the mid-20s. Maybe try to get Kansas City out of one of those back-to-back picks and take him there. I don't think he's a top half of the draft guy.
Interesting. Okay. A lot of mocks have him high, so it'd be kind of risky, I think, moving back to the 20s if that's your target.
But to his point, that could just be, the Ravens and really just everywhere getting high on a player for a certain reason. So that's the thing about mocks is these are just names that are commonly thrown out. But to his point, this is a guy that I think pre-combine, he was probably a guy that people were looking at late first round.
So the reason they're called mock drafts is not because they're meant to simulate the real draft.
Right, of course.
It's because they're meant to be mocked.
Right.
So the people that have him, going top 10, top 12, top 15, feel free to make fun of those people.
Right.
All right, fair enough.
So let's talk a little bit about the couple of interior guys. The one guy you already kind of talked a little bit about, Jordan Davis. He's the combine freak show, the guy that ran the crazy 40 time at 340 pounds at 6'6". He's going to demand a double team. I mean, this guy is huge. He is massive inside. He's a great run stopper. But do you think he'll be enough and be on the field enough to justify a pick at 14?
So that's another one that, you got to love his athletic upside and his athletic profile.
Right.
And, the things that I talked about earlier. His teammate, Devonta Wyatt, actually has a better pass rush upside than him. But he does have some pass rush juice. If you're taking him at 14, you're banking on him learning very quickly from guys like Mike Pierce and Calais Campbell, especially Calais Campbell.
Right.
So that's a pick that you have to be uber confident. Not uber confident, but you have to be confident that your defensive line coaching and veteran players can show him the way.
And I think that's a big part of why they brought Calais back. Calais, is that mentor for that defensive line. And, Michael Pierce, obviously, he's been around the league for a while, right? He can be a mentor, but they've got a big hole, I think, in losing Big Baby, specifically against the run. We all know what he was as a run defender.
Right. He's a baseballer.
Right. Now, the other guy that you mentioned, Devontae Wyatt, 6'3", 307 pounds, his teammate, great quickness inside. It can be quick to shoot the gaps, but struggles a bit against the run in power formations. Played 0 tech all the way out to 7 tech. Do you like Wyatt's fit along the interior?
Yes, I do like Devontae Wyatt's fit along the interior. However, I like him at the ass end of the first round or potentially in the second round. I do not like him at 14.
Okay, so another guy that you're trading back, so right up there with Karlaftis.
Yeah, he's a guy that you have to worry about his explosiveness. He needs some work with his hands, his feet. Just something about his tape made me look at him and go, well, that's probably a second round guy. There was some hype about him going in the first round, and he might. I just hope it's not to Baltimore at 14. He's got some pass rush juice, but he's got some issues that I think people aren't talking enough about in terms of his explosiveness and his hand and feet usage.
Okay. Fair enough. Let's flip sides of the ball. Let's look at the offensive line, right? Obviously, this is going to assume that the top 3 offensive linemen are gone in Evan Neal, Aquanu, even Kenyon Green. We'll say he's gone, the top guard that's in this draft. a guy that, he's kind of a project, but could fall depending upon what happens at the top end of this draft. Charles Cross, the offensive tackle out of Texas A&M, 6'5", 305 pounds, played last season as a left tackle, last 2 seasons as a left tackle. Great athlete, very strong in pass pro, may struggle a bit against the run from what I've seen. Do you think if Cross is available and are you running to the table for a guy like this, or are you still okay now that with the news of Ronnie Stanley's health being better?
Even before the news of Ronnie Stanley's health being better, I don't think I was running to the table for Charles Cross.
Okay.
I think Cole really likes him, but I think Jeff said that he's a really hard evaluation for the Ravens, and if you've got a really tough evaluation, I don't think you run to the table for him at 14. I think you can take a different guy later on in the draft, especially again, positivity. Let's say that this Ronnie Stanley news is real. And also let's take into account that Juwan James was, he was activated off PUP at the end of last year. Let's say that he's healthy and ready to go and he's assimilated into the offense. I don't think you have to rush anywhere for an offensive tackle, let alone one that you're not too sure about.
Okay.
Right. Well, I mean, speaking of kind of the same thing that some people aren't too sure about, James over here is high on Trevor Penning. This is his guy out of Northern Iowa, 6'7", 327. This is the guy that all the videos were coming out with him with the practice squad, throwing guys to the ground. He's, the Senior Bowl. The fact that he's got such a mean streak in him, but we also saw through some of the same time frame videos that there were guys. Speed kills him. Because there were guys that were much smaller than he was, and they were running at him faster with the bull rush, and he just couldn't handle it. So too many flags here, too much risk for 14. In I think Fred's opinion, in my opinion,
it's a very love or hate relationship with the Penning idea. You got people on both sides of the fence here. Where do you stand?
Well, the people that hate Penning are wrong.
Okay.
So there's that. You can't teach size. You can't teach attitude. Everything else is correctable.
Okay.
I get that he's heavily penalized. I get that speed kills him. You're looking at Trevor Penning as your right tackle. I mean, you're not looking at him as the left tackle. Now, granted, defenses move their rushers around a lot more than they used to. So right tackle and left tackle are kind of even in terms of importance these days. Trevor Penning is a specimen, dude. And if you want to talk about attitude versus ability, right? So Ryan Jensen had that mean streak. Ryan Jensen also struggled with speed rushes. Everybody loves Ryan Jensen.
Right.
So why don't they love Trevor Penning?
So
I think we're seeing is the whole, what I think we're seeing is that people are like, oh, well, everybody loves him, so I'm going to hate him. And then, again, everybody caught on.
You have James over here with the biggest damn smile on his face
he
right
loves
now, man.
Penning. Absolutely loves Penning.
I think this guy would be a monster in Baltimore, but I just feel like the Ravens are going to just go defense. So,
well, here's my only issue with Penning, right? And I to your point, everything that you just said is very valid. All the reasons that I liked Ryan Jensen was because he had that mean streak. He was protective, the play over Flacco when he got hit by Kiko Alonso. That's the kind of offensive mind that you want, and that's the kind of mentality that you want. But there becomes a line where you become just ridiculous, I think. And some of those practice videos that we saw at the Senior Bowl, right? He was
showing off at the Senior Bowl.
I get it, but he's taking guys and throwing them back, throwing them on the ground towards a quarterback. You imagine if he threw a guy like that and a defensive end or
Lamar
outside
Jackson's
linebacker
ankles, a broken ankle.
Yeah, his knee, his ankle, whatever.
Be standing around there, dude.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Lamar likes to be.
That's why we all hate James Hurst.
What's that?
That's why we all hate James Hurst. So, I mean, it's a valid concern, but show me one game tape where he's doing that.
Right. And honestly, I didn't watch any of his game tape prior to it. I just saw what I saw and what everybody else got excited about. Everybody excited about the attitude. Everybody got excited about the size and the athleticism. That's where Penning was kind of born, was at that Senior Bowl practice. But like I said, I saw the pros and I saw the cons. I worry, especially at 14, the risk reward there with Penning.
So the Ravens love Penning. That's the word. Okay. They love Penning. Here's the knife to James's heart. He is not a good pick at 14. you definitely trade back for a guy like Benning.
Maybe we can trade back in the first.
Sure.
I'm with that. I mean, if he's our second pick in the first round, cool. I'm all right with that. I just, at 14, I just do not like it. I just don't think the risk reward's worth it.
About these offensive tackles that we're talking about, right? If they're taking an offensive tackle in the first round, you better start worrying about Ron Stanley.
Exactly. Yeah. I agree with that 100%. That's going to be the tell-all. The other offensive lineman in this draft who was especially early when draft talk first started, Tyler Lindenbaum, the center out of Iowa, 6'3", 292 pounds. What's that?
He's not a fit.
You didn't let you finish. Nope. Cut it off. Cut him off.
Maybe not, but here's the thing. I mean, he's got the wrestling background, has a great base, could be an anchor in the middle of the line for a decade or more. Like, that's what they're projecting with this kid, is that he is hands down, head and heels above everybody else as far as center prospects in this draft. I love this kid, and I think he'd be a plug-and-play gap filler, and you have him for 5 years if you take him in the first, but he is absolutely, in my opinion, the guy that you trade back for. Yeah. If the Ravens do trade back in the draft, not trade back in, I'm talking about trade back in the draft with their first-round pick, I think Linderbaum is the target here, at least in my opinion.
He doesn't fit the scheme, though. You have to learn a whole new offensive line scheme for him.
Okay.
So I don't think you can get guys like Luke Fortner or Alex Landstrom or the kid out of ASU. You can get guys later in the draft that 20% of the cost, 80% of the production that are better scheme fits. Don't get me wrong, dude. Linderbaum's a hell of a player. Just not for Baltimore.
Okay, fair enough, man. That's why we ask you, right? Yeah. So let's take a look at some hypothetical scenarios, right? So obviously we talked about a plethora of names, all at positions of concern for the Ravens, right? So let's say all the names that we've talked about, we've already named the guys that aren't on the board, the givens that are going to go off the board in the top 10 before the Ravens pick. All the players we just named are on the board. Who is your guy at 14? Obviously, let's eliminate. Hold on, let's eliminate Kyle Hamilton because we already know he's your number one overall player. Let's eliminate Kyle Hamilton. But outside of him, all the other names that we've talked about: corner, tackle, offensive line. Who is your guy in this draft for the Ravens?
Hold on, before I answer that, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So for the people that don't like Penning at 14, right? Or don't like Penning for the Ravens because of his attitude or something like that. How many of you guys like George Pickens?
Like who?
Pickens, the wide receiver.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I get you. I see where you're going with this.
Yeah. He's flowing guys into the crowd.
Right.
And everybody loves Pickens. But
right.
somehow it's a problem with Penning. Anyway, man, you're taking Kyle Hamilton away. So, I mean, number 2, dude, Derek Stingley.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Now, to be fair, even if you left Kyle Hamilton in, I would still take Derek Stingley.
Just because of the fit in the offense or in the defense?
Oh my God, dude. Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. So
it's a monster.
Next hypothetical, and I'm going to throw this out there. This was Fred's idea to do this hypothetical. I'm just saying it. There's no DBs on the board. They're gone.
Okay.
But you have your choice and pick of the litter at edge and defensive line guys. Who are you going with?
Ooh.
Do you like the Jordan Davis fit? Do you like the Jermaine Johnson fit? What?
Are we assuming that Hutch and Tibb are off the board?
Yeah, we'll just say Hutch and Thibodeau are off the board. We're not going up to get those two guys.
That's the only reason I paused so long. I'm like, do I take Hutch or do I take Tibb? It's Jermaine Johnson for me.
It is Jermaine.
Okay.
Even with your concerns on the interior of the defensive line, you still like Jermaine Johnson better with the prospects that are up there.
100%, because you look at it this way, right? If you have Odafe Oweh and Jermaine Johnson coming off the edge, you can figure out the interior, man.
Right. I agree with that.
Then, you can gap fill there, yeah.
Yeah. You can come back and take like an IDL on day 2, and you'll be fine. Or an interior rusher of some sort on day 2 and figure it out from there.
Okay.
If you have JJ and 00 coming off of the edge, you don't have to worry about shit.
You can find, to your point, you can find it in day 2, even not necessarily day 3, but day 2, especially in the second round, third round, you can find guys that are, still serviceable, plug and play, projects, if you will. They're going to need a little bit of work.
This is a
but
stockpiled draft between 25 and probably 55 in this draft. There's a ton of fucking talent.
I would say between 25 and 85.
Really, even that far out? Wow,
Deep.
That's great.
Oh yeah, like you're watching some of these guys. It's a good draft to have a lot of day 2 and early day 3 picks.
That's great. Well, beyond first round guys, then, right? Since we're talking about it, who's the one guy? Who's your one guy you would love to see as a Raven in this draft, and why? Beyond the first round guys, who is that guy that fits and would be your guy?
Can I pick one on each side of the ball?
Sure, go for it.
All right, sweet. So Roger McCreary.
Okay, I love his fit as a slot guy.
Yeah, my God, dude, absolutely.
Yeah.
You take Roger McCreary at 45, and you've got your slot corner for the next 10 years. That kid's so good. And he's got inside-outside versatility, too. He's just undersized. So like, people think that he's not going to be good because of his size. He's better than Tavon. Like right now, I think he's probably better than Tavon was in whatever year that was that Tavon was really good. He's my draft crush, McCreary.
Okay.
On the other side of the ball, James Cook, running back.
Who? James
Cook.
Oh, James Cook. Yeah, what's his name? Delvin Cook, his brother, right?
Yeah, his brother. So he's not as good as Delvin Cook, but if you're determined to add a premier pass catching running back, James Cook is the guy.
Ravens just had him in for a visit, I believe, recently, didn't they?
Correct.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
Last week.
I like that.
James Cook is the completion of the four-headed monster that includes J.K. and Gus and Lamar. Plus, he has enough rushing upside that you can stick him in if J.K. and Gus, for whatever reason, are not ready to go. So,
I like it.
Not bad. Not bad.
Like it.
All right, so let's kind of go and give some predictions now.
Yeah, let's get into beyond what we think, what we want, right? We all know what the Ravens do historically, so let's look at 3 different scenarios here. I want to give us all of our predictions at what the Ravens might do at 14 with these 3 different scenarios. Let's say the Ravens don't move and stay at 14. Who's the guy? And I want all of us to give an answer. If they don't move,
Jermaine Johnson.
Okay.
All right. I don't think Johnson will be there.
He's there.
I don't think Johnson will be there, and that's why I would go with Davis. I've been saying Davis for a long time now. I think he's a guy that will be there, and it's a guy that can make an impact right away of the guys that I think will be there.
Okay. James, who's the guy at 14?
Well, we know we have to draft a quarterback, so I'm going to go with Pickett. No, I'm going to go with my boy, like Trevor.
At 14?
We need to get this offensive line set for Lamar if we're going to pay him this $50 million that he's going to be asking next year, because that's what the league's trending up. You know, he wants to be, I want to show what I'm doing and all. You got to protect your guy. You got to protect your investment. And if you don't know what Stanley's going on, but like I said, I'll be fine with Jordan there as well. But as much as I would love to go offense, even a wide receiver, I still see them going defense, and I'm with Scott. With Jordan's going to be there.
All right, so I think only reason they don't go Davis is because his limited snaps. Right, I don't think he's going to be on the field enough to justify 14 if they go 14. So at 14, I would love Jermaine Johnson. I'm right there with you, but I think Johnson's gone at 14.
That's what I said, yeah.
And I still think they go edge, and I do think they go Karlaftis. And I think, I don't love the fit, and I think it's going to upset Raven fans. I really do. But I think in the long run, given that he gets a year under his belt, I think Ravens fans will change their tune on him just because of the kind of power presence that he does have. And he's a solid athlete. And again, Ellis McKinney, a friend of the show or whatever, was talking about this kid as a freshman when he was a freshman and how disruptive he was. And again, this is a Big Ten offensive line, right? So I think he's only grown as time's gone on. I like the pick of Karlaftis at 14, is my opinion.
All right.
So let's say the Ravens trade down. That's the next scenario, right? They trade down. Who's the later guy they feel comfortable trading out of 14 for?
Go ahead, Chibs.
Penning.
Okay.
Well, Now, if they trade back, maybe Karlaftis.
Okay.
Or Trent McDuffie.
Who's the guy?
That's where I would go.
Give me one. Give me one.
I'd probably go Trent McDuffie at that point. I mean, it depends on how late you're talking trading back, but that's probably a Trent McDuffie pick.
That's me. If they're trading back, it's to go after a guy like McDuffie and get the value because you can pick it up. You can pick up, as he just said, 25 through 80, 85, 55, wherever it's at. If you're giving up 14, you're getting something in there. So you're picking up another pick in there, which just gives you another hit and another potential hit. So why not trade back, get a guy like McDuffie who can make an impact, and then go get one of those other guys.
That's who I'm going. I'm going with Booth, not McDuffie. I'm going with Booth.
You're going Booth? Okay.
Yeah, I fucking hate McDuffie. I'm going with Booth.
All right, James, who you got? Trading back.
Are you going to keep the same name? So you're going to take Penning at 14, or they're going to take him if they trade back. Either way.
I told him I would love just to have him, dude. If we, trade back into the first and we can get him, I'll take it, But, we can always get a quarterback.
Right. I personally still believe that if they do trade back, I think it's a sign that they go Linderbaum. I think, I know they paid Macari some extra money, but Linderbaum I don't think goes above 20. I think he's in that like 21 to 24 range. So if you see them trade back to there, I think Ravens flock will go crazy on social media.
Here's the question on something like that, though, right? Is Linderbaum that much of an upgrade at center over upgrading your defensive end or your defensive line or your DBs?
The answer is no.
Right, and that's my point, is I don't think that would happen.
The answer is no.
Yeah, I don't know. They're doing everything that they can to try to protect Lamar, right? That's especially going to be a big investment whenever the fuck that happens. Let's hope that happens. I don't know. I just think that they want to do something to show Lamar that they're invested in him besides the money thing, right? He's holding out for whatever reason.
Dude. So improve your defense, and
I get that.
Defense stops the other team from scoring so many points, then Lamar won't have to do so much, and you're protecting him that way.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So let's go with the other one that we'd all love to see somehow, but it's going to cost us, right? Remember that. The Ravens trade up. Let's say the Ravens trade up. Who's the can't miss guy? You got to have him, and you got to have him now. And we'll say...
It's good for Kyle Hamilton.
I didn't pull it out of there.
All right, so do we want to put a caveat on this?
This isn't what you want or what you think. What do you actually think EDC would trade up for?
And trade up too. So think about what pick you're trading up to as well.
I got it.
Go ahead. While Chibs thinks, go ahead, James.
I'm going with Singletary.
Stingley, you mean?
I'm sorry, Stingley. I'm sorry. I'm over here scrolling up.
So Stingley, you think is worth trading up for, and that's the guy that they'd be going after. You want to go defense? Go get your defensive guy. Go get your Jamar Chase stopper for the next 4 years. Lock it down.
You'd have to go up to 8 to do that.
Well, do what we got to do.
Well, I think, I think 6 comes into play because of all the scenarios I talked about with Carolina. I think if they're going to trade up, 6 is the spot, personally.
Okay. So who are you going with then?
I think if they do go and trade up, it's to go after an edge guy because that is the biggest need, in my opinion, is still the edge guy, and I think they get a Thibodeau, right? They're high on Thibodeau. Thibodeau loves the Ravens. He's been talking to Ray. He is another guy that's got the highest floor, still hasn't peaked yet, right? So I think if they make a move and go up to 6, it's Thibodeau.
How about you, Chibs? You figured it out?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to go with 6 too, but I was going to say 8.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it'd be either Tibbs or Sting. I don't think there's anyone else that interests them that much. As far as DPA/N, I think it would be either Tibbs or Sting.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement on that. They'd have to trade up.
Yeah.
You have to double down and get halfway there, right? You got to at least moving 4 picks to 10 doesn't make sense. It's not going to be. You're not going to get the guy that you want. It's got to be to anywhere between that 6 and that 8 mark. And to your point, it's a Thibodeau, it's a Stingley, it's those guys. You're trying to grab them before anybody else gets them because these guys can make an impact. Day one. These guys are day one. Imagine having Owe and him and Thibodeau on the other side. I mean,
I'm freaking out the same about that as I am about him and Jermaine Johnson too.
Right. Well, but I mean, I think Thibodeau has, to me, more speed off the line from the videos that I've seen, from the film that I've seen.
More of a freak athlete.
Right, well, that too. But I think he's just he's unstoppable from what you've seen, right, from that perspective. So I think that's where it comes in. But it sounds like we're all in agreement that those are the two main guys that we could really see the Ravens going up and getting.
It's positions, right? They're going to go after, if they're trading up, it's to go after an absolute position of need, which is right now is edge and cornerback. And if Stingley is their guy or Thibodeau is their guy, I think Ravens flock would be extremely excited about either one of them, personally.
Yeah. Jersey sales will go out.
and then they change their number the next year. That's how it works. That's how it generally works.
It's been fun as usual, man. Again, this is year 3 now in the books, man. What's your draft day plans for Thursday? Are you watching at home, or what are you doing?
Yeah, we're just gonna watch at home. I am going to actually be redoing the floor for one of Kelly's clients, so I will probably just finish up early there, and then we'll watch the game watch the draft on the big screen. She'll probably fall asleep long before I'm done watching, so I will try to keep my yelling and screaming to a minimum.
Well, we will be live, man. So if you're bored and you want to make a phone call, you want to call into the show, we'll be live for that 3 or 4 hours on Thursday. It's been fun as always, man. Tell everybody where everybody can follow you on social media and any projects or anything that you're working on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, boys. Right now, I'm currently on Twitter at LRChibs. It's CHIBS. Hopefully, I'm going to get my Late Round Corner account back. So what had happened was I was having a conversation with a friend of mine. Okay, he said something about people, or specifically women, who the astrology sign thing, like, oh, I did it because I'm a Sagittarius, or whatever the fuck that stupid people say. So I said the people that use their astrological signs as a personality should kill themselves expeditiously. Yeah, and apparently somebody thought I was telling my buddy to kill himself.
Oh, no.
I assumed. So I got banned for that. So, of course, the one time I'm not eloquent in my insults, I get got for it. So it's
some people don't just don't get that Chibs asshole kind of vibe. They don't get it. They don't get you. They don't get you.
If you're using an astrology sign as a personality, you're a fucking idiot. So
agreed.
You should remove yourself from this plane of existence.
Maybe Eli Musk could take that back.
Right, and remove the mood ring from your left hand. Thank you.
Elon might be saving you here.
Listen, man. Let's hope so. So for right now, it's at LRChibs. Maybe permanently. I don't know. We'll find out. I appreciate everyone that has helped me get some of my my followers back and everything like that. As far as projects, man, I have been a lazy son of a bitch. If it is not radio or podcast, I haven't been doing it. But I am going to keep up the tradition of doing one final article before the draft hits. So I'll be releasing that tomorrow.
I saw you posted that on Twitter that you were going to be putting that out at some point tomorrow.
I am. And then I probably won't write anything until football season starts or something. It's gotten to the point where, like, I'm so busy with work that I really just enjoy interacting with people on Twitter, and I just don't have the time or honestly the motivation to write.
Yeah.
So
I get it.
That.
Life comes first, my friend. Life comes first.
Correct. So everyone follow me at LRChibs, and that is my only form of social media. I'm not a big social media guy these days, so that's that.
Well, Facebook is trash anyway, so glad you're not on there anyway.
Hey, we got listeners listening on Facebook right now. Leave it alone.
It's trash. We love all of you, but it's trash.
They can watch on Twitter, too.
That's right. Twitter, YouTube, you can follow it anywhere. Chibs, appreciate you taking the time, man. Fun as always. We'll stay in touch, brother.
All right, bud. Thanks for having me on. Have a good night.
You too, man.
Always a good character to have on the show. Great guy. Good insights. He does his homework with a lot of things. Has interesting takes, and you don't always agree with Chibs. We had conversations in the past about not agreeing with Chibs on certain things, but you can't knock his point. He makes a lot of good points when he's talking about a lot of these guys, and he's done a lot of his research. By the way, Drew's watching on Facebook. Just wanted to
appreciate
point
you guys tuning in. I haven't had a chance to really go through the chat room, so I'm hoping James got written down a lot of questions, because what we're going to do is, this is just a Ravens only show, right? We were just talking draft tonight. We're going to do our 2-minute warning here in a minute. We're going to answer a lot of your questions as best we can in the after hours, so stay tuned for the after hours segment of the show, and we'll try to get to as many of them as we possibly can.
No rules. No boundaries. 2 topics. 30 seconds each. It's time for the 2-minute warning.
All right, fellas, it's time for the 2-minute warning. Ravens style. We're going to keep this Ravens theme, right?
Yeah.
James came up with a couple of questions to go for the 2-minute warning that are Ravens themed.
All right, what we got, James?
Ready when you are, my friend.
I got the button.
Look at him. He's producing.
I love it.
All right. What are your thoughts on Deshaun Elliott going out and signing a 1-year deal with the Detroit Lions?
Good on Deshaun, man. I love Deshaun as a person. I loved him as a player. He was just, again, you had 2 similar safeties in him and Chuck Clark here, and obviously the writing was on the wall that they wanted a more playmaking, ball-hawking safety. That's why they spent all the money on Marcus Williams. Yep. I wish him nothing but the best out there in Detroit, because I know it's going to be tough times out there. No matter what happens in Detroit, things are never on the up and up and good in Detroit.
You wish him good luck, but as you said, fucking Detroit.
Right.
I'd have taken a lower offer somewhere else at this point.
It's a 1-year prove-it deal. So.
Right. I get it. But it just goes to show there's something out there with him. There were struggles at times for him to stay on the field. When he was on the field, impactful player, which is why he gets a deal. But I wish I would have liked to see him go somewhere else where he actually we would have been able to measure that impact a little bit more.
Right.
But we'll see.
All right, and thoughts, and were you surprised to see Miles Boykin's release after 3 seasons, considering he was formerly a 3rd-round pick?
Surprised? No. It was just a matter of time. The writing was on the wall. There was no chemistry between him and Lamar offensively. Yes, he brought some value, obviously, as a blocking wide receiver. He was the biggest wide receiver that we had size-wise, but he didn't use it to his advantage outside of blocking. He was a special teams ace, so that'll be missed, because this is another piece on the special teams side that won't be there. But was I surprised with this? No. Going to the Steelers sucks.
Yeah, it sucks, and what sucks more is the fact of their history of being able to develop receivers.
Right.
So that's the thing, is if he goes there and is successful, it just continues to enhance that we can't develop receivers. That's what's going to suck.
Right.
But ultimately, what the fuck took so long? We've been calling it for this for 2 years now. After year 1, we were saying, don't feel that this is a guy. And then after the second year was, he's not the guy. And then the 3rd year was, he's definitely not the guy. Well, they finally heard us after the 3rd year. So, it's gonna suck if he does well over there. But I'm kind of crossing my fingers and hoping that the Steelers fuck this up.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Well, it's a good show. Again, big shout out to Michael Telford, Chibs, for coming on the show and taking the time to be with us tonight. Very insightful. Always fun talking to him. Make sure you guys tune in Thursday. If you guys are watching the NFL draft on a TV, you want to listen to us for 3 or 4 hours talk about the Ravens. We do it every year. We live stream the round 1, and we'll be here with the entire crew. I think Ryan's the only one that won't be here, but the rest of the crew will be here.
Breakdown of all the picks for every team, not just the Ravens. Obviously, we're going to be excited at the Ravens and what they wind up doing. So definitely stay tuned and have your alerts on. Make sure you hit those alert buttons on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, so that you know when we go live. It'll probably be around 7:30, so around this time. I think the draft starts at 8, so we'll go live, having a few beers here and putting food in our mouths as we're doing the show, so it'll be exciting and fun. Make sure you check us out on our website, www.birdlandbs.com. While you're there, you can check out all of our episodes. You can learn about each of us. Get yourself some Birdland BS gear. Check out Shell and Tell. You guys have been putting out little episodes
here. We will
be
live Saturday at the spring practice game. We got some big guests, including Juju, coming on the show. Julian Reese stopping by the tailgate.
There we go. The Juju that matters. Make sure you also follow us on all of our social media accounts. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. @BirdlandBS is how you find us. If you're listening to this now, I don't know how if you didn't find us on one of those. So make sure you're there. If you're listening to the audio version of the show, which is on all of the podcast platforms, make sure you like, follow, subscribe, and drop us a review while you're there. As always, thanks for tuning in, guys. Thanks, Michael Telford, Chibs, for joining us. For Fred, James, myself, Drew, and Ryan, who aren't here, we'll see you guys on Thursday for draft night.
See ya. It's time for the after party.
Last call for alcohol.
Man, great show.
Great show.
A lot
I was fumbling over my words a little bit.
We both were, especially early on. We had some technical difficulties before the show. I think we were a little rattled, but things smoothed out. A lot of chatter in the chat room. So thank you all. We appreciate you guys tuning in and
I couldn't keep up with it. It was coming so fast.
I know, and I got to a point where I'm like, God, I'm paying attention to the chat, and I'm not paying attention to him. I need to listen to him.
Where was the? That's what she said. You just miss it.
I missed it. Yep. Went right over the head.
Jesus
right over the noggin.
Christ.
James, so who's been out there in the chat room? Any big questions or anything that we need to talk about? What's going on?
It's like everybody that wants to put in. Well, yeah, Nick Short talk about AB like half, but like middle. I mean, like the end of when we first started, the middle, and then now just to the end. He said that was a good one. So, but the AB was brought up, and Drew had to call him out. Of course, it had to be brought in. Dave, like I said, he was putting all kinds of nice comments, and that was like one of the ones that I shared about like trading back maybe. But yeah, it was a lot. Like I wish I could like freeze them and like.
I thought you had written some of them down.
I did. I said the two that I had, but they were like going back and forth about who should we take, and Drew said about Wolf, he can go. I said he can go hunting because that's what he's good at.
Dan Keeney chiming in and saying we need defensive linemen and corners, and that's kind of what we were talking about, right? Is the fact that those are the two main areas that we need depth at. We need the ability to stop guys. This defense was not the defense that we've seen the 2 years prior as being a number one style defense. This year they struggled. Now some of that was because of injuries. Some of it was because of poor scheming in some people's eyes. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's why we see McDonald coming in now, right? And why Wink's gone. Okay.
The biggest thing on the defense, other than injuries, was communication issues. There were too many times where even your star players, Marlon Humphrey and some of the other guys that were caught out of position and things that you just don't see that are normal characteristics of a Ravens defense.
But how much of that lends itself to what we've heard, that this is one of the toughest, prior to this year, prior to McDonald coming in, when Wink was in there, it was one of the toughest defensive schemes to learn.
I get that, but a lot of the guys that were having these communication issues were guys that have been around for a while. So it just seemed like something was off in the communication in the defense, especially in the secondary. Again, once the injury started happening, it got worse and worse and worse because guys were in there that weren't expected to play a whole lot of time. But you're right. Defensive line and corners, I think, are a big priority. I know for a lot of fans, it's not the sexy picks because everybody wants to see offense and put more and more weapons around Lamar and all of that. But again, Lamar with a healthy offensive line, getting both of his star running back studs back from the injuries that they have. Bateman coming into year 2. This offense has got some stars. They just weren't around last year.
And like I said, we had Vinny say he is looking forward to Thursday, which I'm looking forward to because after a couple of these drafts, this to me is going to be like one of the best shows and picks for the Ravens because I personally thought that we'd do more offense this year because of how we struggle and the injuries and stuff like that. But it's funny, after the season was over and we decided to, sign a big safety, big payday safety. You guys talk about Jimmy retiring. We need more corners, pass rushers that we struggle at. But I don't know. I'm excited. It's going to be a great night. I don't know. Are we doing any giveaways or having anything? Or
yeah, so with that, we'll announce some of it as the draft actually happens. Yeah. But yeah, we're gonna do some shirt giveaways, some hat giveaways. I don't know. Last year I did the draft hat and the draft shirt, like what I'm wearing right now, as a giveaway.
They fucking sucked this year.
The hat and shirt were great last year. They are absolutely terrible this year. I thought, like, when I first saw them, I thought that was like the old man in me coming out. I'm like, Jesus Christ, do I just not know style nowadays? But then when I'm seeing like these 18 and 19-year-old kids on social media saying, this shit's trash, blah, 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 I'm like, all right, so it isn't just me. It's awful. Like, it's awful. So I don't even know if I want to give that away. So we'll work on some stuff and we'll announce it because we're going to have plenty of time throughout the draft before the Ravens pick to announce some things. But we'll have some, we're going to open the phone line to you guys as well. So again, if you're tuning in and you want to call in and comment about what you think the Ravens might do, we invite you to do that.
But not just comment about that. You could also talk about what is your food partake in the draft.
Yeah.
And like, you know, because I'm a food connoisseur. I like to know what you like and stuff like that. But also, we saw like what's going on for the draft. We were there in Vegas, and you remember we went to the Bellagio. We're like, what are you doing out there with the fountain? And then I put two and two together, and I was like, they're probably working on getting this stage prep for the draft when we're out there. So
yeah, you sent the picture of the stage in the chat. It looks pretty interesting. It's gonna be interesting, especially at night, all lit up in those Vegas lights. It's gonna be pretty good.
Craig Zero says mac and cheese with bacon. I'm with you, my friend. That sounds good.
You making some? Let's bring it.
Yeah,
come on.
Right. Open the phone line for the right Steven Severs. Good point, Drew. The real Steven Severs, please stand up. He says, I'll call in. Are you the real Steven Severs?
Yeah, right. We know who the real Steven Severs is.
Fuck Steven Severs. Click.
Yeah. So stupid.
So funny.
Oh, man. Yeah, it was a lot of fun last year. So we'll I'm sure have plenty to do this year. I know last year we opened up and we had to thank everybody last year for all the donations we got during that show too. It was awesome. It was amazing. So we'll probably have something along those lines in there. And a lot of people I know that were in the chat room were kind of just really getting into the idea that when we're talking this draft, it really is the biggest draft where you're going, because we're in the middle, right? Previously in years past, we were either way at the front or we were way in the back. We were 20, I won't say way in the back, but 22, 23, 24, somewhere around there. You knew about who's going to be there. This is the first year that you go, okay, they could really take somebody that's impactful at 14, but they really could trade up and get somebody who's even more impactful, but they could really trade back.
This is like probably one of the more unpredictable drafts for me. You know me, a couple years ago, I could go right down the list, damn near almost every one of you, and tell you what was. We did it.
We did it. We did it live.
And I was right on so many of them. I can't tell you that this year. One, because I'm not as deep into it as I was a couple years ago. Two, just because, again, the mocks and positional needs for there's a lot of needs for these teams.
I'm not playing the shot prediction game this year. That's for damn sure. Because this year is the year that one of us or all of us will be drunk off our ass by the end of the show.
So shout out to John Googs, man. Super fan of the show. Super fan of Shell and Toe as well. Him and I got a chance to go down to watch the Terps take on Hopkins.
Yeah, that was
how was that? The other night.
Looked good.
Oh, it was a fun time, man. The stadium was beautiful. The weather was great, and they won and they slaughtered. It was 22-7. I mean, 22-4 with like 3 minutes left to go in the third quarter, and they pulled all their starters out.
To Drew's point, this team needs to win the championship.
100%, and that's what Googs and I were talking about. Is we've seen this where they've been so dominant, but then they get into, especially under this head coach, they get into the championship and they can't get the job done. They've been to 5 championships and lost.
This is the year,
right? So this is the year. I mean, listen, they're a good team. If you haven't had a chance, if you like physical, high-scoring sporting events, if you haven't had a chance to get down and watch this Terps team play lacrosse, it's super fun. It's super fun. They're actually going to have the Big Ten tournament at the Capital One field. So if you get a chance to get down there for this game in that big-ass stadium, there's going to be plenty of open seats. Get down there. The tickets are going to be inexpensive. It's a lot of fun, and this team is really, really good.
Yeah, not the $70 that Drew thought.
No, that was season tickets. Googs thought the same thing. When you first clicked, it was very misleading. It thought it was $70. They were $15 tickets to go to that Hopkins
So we're
game.
being told, try a grilled cheese sandwich with barbecue rib meat in it. That sounds amazing.
I'm fat. That sounds amazing. Sounds great.
I was thinking about maybe doing some either some ribs or even some brisket for us. So we'll see what we got going on there.
What else do we got in here?
Fred, who gets drunk first in the draft?
Who gets drunk first during the draft? I'm going to give that award to Scott because you'll know, outside of like just looking at it. Yes, there it is. He starts to slurring his words and getting getting the wet mouth. You'll know it's him. No,
I haven't done that in a while.
Well, we got 4 hours to get that done during this draft show, so I'm sure it'll happen.
And I don't have to drive anywhere. That's the biggest problem is I don't have to drive anywhere. Y'all do.
That's the biggest problem, Scott.
Yes, it is.
Did you guys see Steven try a burger with peanut butter on it?
I can't get down with that.
I've heard that.
I've heard that because I can't get down with the egg on the burger either.
But you know what? You know what some people have said, and I would be really interested to try this. Here locally, Sakura. You ever had their salad in the peanut sauce that comes with the salad? It's like the peanut dressing. I wasn't a big fan of that for the longest time, and then somebody said add like some like chicken or something to it, and it's amazing. It's actually pretty good when you put it with like chicken or beef.
Well, I think James gonna be hooking us up with some Italian cold cuts for the draft. I'm looking forward to that. I haven't had a good Italian cold cut since Vegas. I had half of your sub on a drunken night, which was very good. That was Subway though, so this place is gonna be a lot better than Subway.
Did you two Lady in the Tramp this sub?
Maybe. There may or may not be video evidence of this.
Oh Jesus!
Or just like what I shared the other day in the group about the guy dipping a hot dog in his beer.
You know, you shared that. So, all right. So James sent a video to us in the group chat of this guy at a Yankee game watching the game by himself, and he's just dipping his dog right in his beer and eating it, right? And at first I thought, oh, what the fuck? Why would you get ketchup and mustard and shit in your beer? And I'm like, wait a minute. No, this is just a plain raw dog. And then I thought about it. I'm like, well, you wash your dog down with beer. I'm like, it's probably not terrible.
You got to lube up that raw dog.
Right, exactly. Well, you think about it, right? Those guys, those hot dog eating contests, they dip their shit in and they shove it down their throat, right? I was like, well, it's probably not that terrible.
Can we isolate that audio?
Don't isolate that one out. We're going to leave that one go. Let that one play out.
The record button's still on, by the way. That's getting isolated later. Oh, man. Yeah, Ryan not going to be here. He's skipping because he's got to work.
He's going to get food for where he's going to be at.
Let's see. Any good comments? Keep them coming in. Hey, if we haven't answered your question, you've got more questions. Put them in here. It's just so much shit to scroll through. Googs did also talk about Jordan Davis, right? And he's a sexy ass pick at in the top of the draft. I love Jordan Davis. I know Ryan's a big Jordan Davis fan as well, and I think he makes sense in his defense. I just don't like him at 14 only because of the limited snaps that he's going to be on the field, like I said. If the Ravens trade back and somehow can still get Jordan Davis, I believe he's still going to go in the top. Somebody's going to take him because he's that much of a freak athletically, and he's such a big run stopper that if a team has a need specific for that, they're going to take him high in the draft. I like him. I just don't love him at 14.
But would you not love the fact of having him being under tutelage of Calais at times?
No, I would. And I think that's why it would be a good fit, because I think Calais is a very good mentor. He did a lot of the same thing for Madubuike last year, right? And I think having him back, that's why I said bringing Calais Campbell back is big for this defense, because I knew they were going to have to add pieces, because losing Brandon Williams, whatnot, we don't know what's going on with Broderick Washington, right? Like, he's good, but I don't know if he's going to be here long term. They were going to be bringing in more pieces. So having a guy like Calais who, one, solidifies a starting spot, and two, can be that mentor, I think is crucial.
Random one-off question. You think Calais is a coach in the future?
Yeah, 100%. He will be coaching, if not at the professional level, at least at the college level.
Right.
At the collegiate level. He's going to go back to his alma mater, the U, and probably coach there. Go ahead, James.
Did you happen to see, I love Chad Ochocinco. He said he saved like 85% of his salary for playing his football, which I believe, because
well, a lot of people said that he had gotten rid of a lot of his money, or he went bankrupt or whatever. And I forget whose show he was on. He was talking. He's like, everybody says it.
Ocho.
Oh, Ocho. Yeah.
He was saying, like, everybody that thinks this is ridiculous, and he literally pulls his phone out, pulls up his bank account, and shows it to the host.
100%. So I've watched his show I Am Athlete since it first debuted, and it's a great podcast. If you listen to any of, both of them are good. The I Am Athlete, a couple of the guys split off and did their thing with the Pivot. Both of them are phenomenal podcasts, so you should subscribe to them. But yeah, listening to Chad.
He said he lived on the Cincinnati Bengals, like their stadium. He lived in the stadium the first 2 years.
He's always been that way. He eats McDonald's food, right? So he doesn't go out and buy like $100 tabs at a restaurant or $200, $1,000 tabs.
Do that too
on occasion, but not like a lot of other players does, right? No. So that it's saving 80% of his salary. I 100% believe that.
Yeah, no, I 100%.
And the money that they make.
But he said he would love if Cincinnati will give him the chance to come back, but not to play wide receiver, to do DB. Let me cover Chase. Jamal Chase, right. And if I do a hell of a job, then sign me. If not, just give me the opportunity. You can cut me. But he said I want to come back as a DB.
Yeah, they had some video on one of the last podcasts that they did of because they had Jamar Chase and they had Jalen Waddle on the podcast recently, which was great. That was a great episode. And he was out there in warm-ups covering Jamar Chase. Jamar got him on a couple. Chad, boosting himself up. He had one big play against him or whatever. I love Chad Johnson. I've always loved his personality and whatnot. And again, those are two good shows.
I got tired of him when he would change his name to Ocho Cinco and did all the things because I thought he was
the entertainment
character.
No, but I thought he was trying to compete with the TO back and forth and stuff. But after he retired, I think he got even better.
100%.
I wish Cincinnati would do more with him.
Yeah.
With the organization or something. But,
so Craig asked a question. I'm going to rephrase it a little bit. He says, do we double dip in the first round? I'm going to ask you, what's the likelihood we trade back into the first round?
I think it could very well happen. It just depends on how things fall, right? But I think the Ravens, and we've seen it already once, I think they value that fifth year. And I think Chibs brought up a good point, right? When you've got big contract coming up in Lamar Jackson, you need as much value as you can get for as long as you can get. And adding that fifth year for a premier type player makes a lot of sense. So if you can trade back, even if it's just trading your second round pick up to the first round, right? Doing that and giving up some a third or a couple fourths or whatever it is to do that, I think it makes sense. And I think the Ravens would be open to doing that.
Ryan, by the way, says he's through the shell and telecount. Throw that Davis pick right down my throat or trade back for 2 first round picks.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Like I said, I like Davis. I don't like him at 14.
I think Ryan is looking for some Michigan guys to be drafted.
That's the last thing.
Drew brings up
what is David Ajabu. I think would have been the only guy he'd have been comfortable with.
Yeah. By the way, Drew brought up a good point. The endorsements money is the money that Ocho sent, and he saved all of his game checks. Which, that's exactly what it is. So. All right, guys. Well, we've had a lot of people chiming in. We can actually, you guys have chimed in so much that we can actually only scroll back so far during the show.
I thought I wasn't doing something right.
No, it definitely, you get to the top portion and it stops. It doesn't allow you to go any further.
It was a really good
Listen,
show.
It's going to be exciting. I think the Ravens just need to get behind Eric DeCosta and that front office, man, and just trust them.
What's up, Justin?
The Ravens have a bunch of needs, right? And I think if they finish at 14 with a top edge rusher, with a top cornerback, with a top offensive lineman, I think everybody in this Ravens fan base will be happy. It just might not be the sexy guy, the name that everybody wants, but I think if they end up with filling a big need like that, Ravenflock can be happy.
Yeah.
What are you laughing at?
We have a troll in the room. He's been doing all night. He's been all night. He's been waiting for this.
James big time right
now. He's doing all.
What he
Pizza
say?
John sucks. He's been saying from the beginning of the show, the middle of the show, and of course he wasn't paying attention. He's like, James ain't there, so I'm not going to be able to say Pizza John sucks. Like
Gooks and I had a whole date night, man. We went to a lacrosse game. We got some pizza together at the at Pizza John's. We had ice cream afterwards. We did the whole thing. He had never been to Pizza John's before. It was his first experience. He said he puts it in his top 3.
Yeah.
Him and fucking Ryan both love Litos. I just don't understand it.
I don't know. I will say that
it's not terrible.
That hot honey is different.
It's good.
It's different.
It's good.
It's different.
We're gonna have to separate. We're gonna have to separate like small shops, mom and pops, local stuff
versus
compared to chains.
Right. Well, he said it's not just that it's Lito. He said, give me all the outside edge pieces of Litos. That's what makes it good.
He said Litos is 4.
Oh, that's right. He did adjust. That's right. You did adjust. I forgot. He had to think about a couple other places.
He's about to make Ryan all happy now.
All right, guys. Well, we will see you guys. Reminder, Thursday night, we're probably going to go live about 7:30-ish as the draft starts at 8. So we'll kind of get into some pre-show. And then obviously the draft. You assume they're going to go Hutchinson as the first potential pick. We've seen multiple different ways of this falling.
It's going to be unpredictable.
It's going to be unpredictable. So we'll get into some of that. We'll have some little contests and giveaways at times. And so make sure you join us. Make sure you share when we do put it live. Make sure you share it on all the social media platforms so we can just grow the audience and make sure that Birdland BS is your place to go for this draft. So appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll see you guys till Thursday.
See you Thursday.